picture this. It's cold, it's damp, really wet. November 11th, 1918, over in France. The Great War, this absolute meat grinder, has been chewing up lives for four grueling years.
It's relentless.
But now the clock's ticking towards 11:00 a.m. And, the whole world is basically holding its breath, waiting for the silence they haven't heard since, 1914?
Yeah, it's the final countdown. Quite literally, a piece is official, well, almost. The Armistice Agreement.
Yeah.
Signed. Done deal. Happened hours ago, actually, around 5:10 in the morning, in that famous railway car near Compiègne.
Right, and that gap, that 6-hour window between them signing the paper and the actual ceasefire hitting at 11 a.m., that's where it gets crazy. That's the lethal absurdity we're really diving into today.
Absolutely, because you've got millions of soldiers just utterly exhausted, soaked, probably terrified, spread out over this huge 250-mile front.
Waiting.
Just waiting. Stuck in this churned-up mud, trees all skeletal around them. They know peace is like 60 seconds away. They've somehow survived this industrial slaughterhouse.
And yet, 10:59 a.m., 1 minute to go, a single American soldier gets up, in the fog,
Snaps his bayonet onto his rifle.
and charges, alone, straight at a German machine gun nest, who are also presumably just watching the clock.
It makes no sense, does it? It flies in the face of survival, of tactics, of every order that was actually relevant in that final hour. Why? Why would anyone choose that moment to die?
When life, home, everything, it's literally a minute away.
Yeah.
So that's our mission for this deep dive. We need to unpack the context, the personal stuff, the politics, the sheer weight of it all that forced Private Henry Gunther to make that sacrifice 1 minute early.
Buying back his honor, as you said, but with the ultimate price. It's maybe one of the most tragic footnotes in all of modern history.
Okay, so let's start with the man himself, Private Henry Gunther. Now, you might think, last guy killed in the war, maybe he's some kind of, hardened, reckless fighter.
Not really, no. Not at all. Actually, he was just 23. And before the draft pulled him in, he was a bank clerk, a bookkeeper back in Baltimore, National Bank of Baltimore.
So a regular guy.
Completely. Stable job, part of his community. He was engaged to be married, active in the Knights of Columbus, just living that kind of quiet working class life that the war just sort of snatched away.
But there was something specific about his background, wasn't there? Something that became, a fatal vulnerability, his heritage.
That's critical, yeah. He was the son of German immigrants, grew up in East Baltimore, which was a big German-American neighborhood, a really tight-knit community.
Which was fine until the U.S. got into the war.
Exactly. Then that German heritage suddenly became, toxic. It cast a shadow. And understanding that weight, that cultural pressure, is absolutely key to figuring out his mindset later on.
Okay, so that's Gunther. What about the immediate scene? Who else is involved right there on the front?
Well, you've got his squad leader, Sergeant Ernest Powell. He was also Gunther's closest friend in the unit, apparently.
Yeah.
Powell's the one who's going to try and stop him, screaming at him in that final minute.
And the quote-unquote enemy.
Right. Over near this little village, Chaumont-de-Vendôme-Villers, there's a German machine gun crew, probably hunkered down with an MG-08, the big water-cooled beast that defined trench defense.
But they weren't exactly spoiling for a fight at 10:59 a.m. either, were they?
No way. They were just guys like Gunther, basically. Sitting in the mud, counting down seconds, wanting to go home. The last thing they wanted was some 11th hour firefight. They were just waiting for the clock to run out.
But for Gunther, the pressure wasn't just the guys in the other trench. It was deeper. It was this wound, he said, inflicted back home.
Absolutely. We really have to get our heads around the atmosphere in the U.S. back then.
Oh.
It was terrifying, frankly. This wave of intense anti-German hysteria.
And this wasn't just popular opinion. This came from the top, didn't it?
Oh, yeah. President Woodrow Wilson himself was out there, warning about disloyalty among German Americans, basically painting them as a potential fifth column, enemies within. It fueled this nationwide paranoia.
And you see that playing out locally in places like Baltimore.
Massively. The sources show it really clearly. It was almost like a societal cleansing. It's the only way to describe it. Schools stopped teaching German. Libraries were pulling books by German authors off the shelves.
Wow.
And specifically in Baltimore, German Street got renamed Redwood Street, practically overnight. The German-American Bank became the American Bank, just trying to erase any trace of that heritage.
It's cultural erasure, forcing people to prove their loyalty almost aggressively.
That's exactly it. And that's the climate Gunther was drafted into. He got called up in September 1917. Now, initially he lucked out a bit. His bookkeeping skills, they made him a supply sergeant.
Safer job, behind the lines.
Relatively safe, yeah. necessary admin work. But then, July 1918, he gets to France, sees the front for the first time, and it just hits him. He was horrified. He wrote about the miserable conditions, the mud, the smell, the constant grinding danger. It shook him up badly.
So he reacts like maybe any scared young guy would. He writes home.
Yeah. He wrote a letter to a friend back in Baltimore. And in it, he basically tells this friend, look, do anything you can to avoid getting drafted and sent over here.
Mm-hmm.
He even suggested, faking an injury or something. He described the trenches, the horror, in really stark terms.
Oh, boy. And that letter, that's the pivot point, isn't it?
That's the moment everything unravels for him. An Army postal censor intercepted it. And given the climate, given the Espionage Act of 1917, his words weren't just seen as complaining or low morale.
They saw it as sedition.
Defeatism.
Exactly. Seditious defeatist talk. That was the official judgment.
And you have to wonder, would they have reacted the same way if his name was, say, O'Malley or Rossi? Did the German surname just amplify everything, make it seem inherently suspicious?
Yeah.
It's almost certain it did. The background radiation of anti-German feeling meant any complaint, any hint of negativity from someone with that heritage. It was treated as potential proof of that disloyalty Wilson warned about. It wasn't just the soldier having a bad day. It fit the narrative.
So they didn't just want to shut him up. They needed to make an example.
Precisely. And they did.
And how they made that example, it's brutal. They didn't just discipline him quietly.
No. This was public. A deliberate act of destruction. They literally hauled him up in front of his whole regiment, the very man he'd been leading just moments before as a sergeant.
And stripped him of his rank right there.
Right there. Demoted him all the way down, from Sergeant Gunther to Private Gunther, in front of everyone.
God, the shame of that. In that military culture.
It was devastating. It was basically a social death sentence. It instantly marked him, whispers started, slacker, coward, or worse, given his background, the unspoken accusation, German sympathizer, traitor. His entire standing, his identity as a soldier, as a man, just wiped out in public.
And it didn't just stay there in France, did it? The shame traveled.
It crossed the Atlantic. News got back to Baltimore. His fiancée, when she heard about the demotion, about the reason for it, the suggestion of disloyalty, she broke off the engagement immediately.
Wow, so it's total ruin.
Think about it. That one letter, intercepted. And suddenly, he's lost his rank, his reputation, his future wife, his honor, what was left for him back in Baltimore. Nothing but suspicion and whispers. All that remained was this crushing need to somehow redeem himself.
And the Army, ironically, gave him the perfect, albeit brutal, path to try.
Right. Demoted to private, he's immediately chucked onto the front lines, no more safe supply job. He's now a rifleman, Company A, 313th Infantry. Baltimore's own, as it happened.
And this wasn't just any front line. This was the Meuse-Argonne offensive.
Yeah, we can't just gloss over that. The Meuse-Argonne. It was the biggest, bloodiest battle in American history, period. 1.2 million Americans involved. 47 days. This wasn't static trench warfare anymore. This was a brutal, grinding push against heavily fortified German positions.
What was it actually like? We hear hellscape, but what did the accounts say? What did Gunther walk into?
The soldier diaries from that time.
Yeah.
They're just horrific. They talk about constant, earth-shattering artillery fire, just nonstop noise and concussion that pulverized the landscape until you couldn't tell where the ground ended and the sky began.
And the conditions in the trenches.
Always wet, always cold, mud everywhere. This thick, disgusting, sucking mud that bred disease. And because there were so many casualties, so much churn.
You'd find.
Remains. Constantly. Soldiers wrote about digging a new foxhole and unearthing body parts from earlier fighting. And the rats. Huge swarms of enormous rats feeding on the dead. Just another constant visceral horror they had to live with every single day.
So Gunther gets thrown into that, already broken psychologically.
But physically, he became incredibly determined. People who knew him then said he became sullen and withdrawn, just totally consumed by the demotion. His only focus, his stated goal was, and I quote, determination to make good before his officers and fellow soldiers.
And how did he try to make good?
By being almost suicidally reckless, he started volunteering over and over again for the single most dangerous job you could possibly have on the front lines. Company runner.
Explain that role. Why was it so deadly?
The runner had to physically carry messages between units across active battlefields. That meant sprinting through no man's land, scrambling through open trenches, totally exposed to snipers, machine guns, or random shell bursts, under incredible pressure to get the message through fast. Sergeant Powell, his friend, later confirmed it. It was purely hazard-based work and totally voluntary. Gunther actively sought it out. It was pretty clear, wasn't it? He was trying to trade his life for one moment of undeniable heroism that would clear his name.
He was basically playing Russian roulette with enemy fire.
Constantly. And eventually that recklessness did catch up with him, but in a way that actually gave him an out, an honorable exit.
What happened?
Just days, literally days, before the armistice was signed. He got shot. Sniper. Hit him in the wrist.
Okay. So, a wound. Minor, maybe, but still a wound. That's his ticket home, right? He's done his duty, got injured.
Exactly. It was the perfect, honorable way out. He could have gone to the aid station, been evacuated, gone home with his health mostly intact. And, the wound itself would have spoken volumes. Redemption of a sort.
But he didn't take it.
He refused. Flat out refused to leave. Bandaged to the wrist himself. Told Powell he was insisting on staying to help his army brothers. He wasn't interested in just going home. He would only go home if his name was completely, officially cleared. The physical wound was nothing compared to the shame he felt.
So he was doubling down. He saw that the only way to erase the slacker label was something truly dramatic, maybe even fatal.
It really seems that way. He was betting everything on one last heroic act.
Which brings us right up to that morning, November 11th, and the sheer madness coming down from command.
It's staggering, isn't it? 10:44 a.m., 16 minutes left until 11:00. The official message finally filters down to the 313th Regiment. War ends at 11:00 a.m. Hold positions.
Imagine the relief. 16 minutes, you've made it. But then, almost immediately,
comes this chilling counter order from Brigadier General William Nicholson. And it says, quote, "There will be absolutely no let-up in the carrying out of the original plans until 11 o'clock.
No let up. Keep attacking with minutes to go.
Keep the pressure on." And this wasn't just Nicholson being stubborn. This was policy coming right down from the top. General Pershing, the overall American commander, he insisted on maintaining maximum pressure right until the final second.
What was the rationale? To stop the Germans grabbing land at the last minute?
That was the official line. Prevent any German maneuvering, keep them pinned down. But the cost of that policy.
The 6-hour gap again. Between signing the peace at 5:10 a.m. and the 11:00 a.m. ceasefire.
Exactly. And that gap created this horrific window of pointless killing. Across the whole front, British, French, American sectors estimates are nearly 3,000 men were killed.
Killed after the peace treaty was signed.
Yes. And thousands more wounded. All during this period of enforced waiting. It was lethal absurdity, pure and simple.
3,000 lives wasted. Because commanders insisted on sticking to the schedule right down to the minute. It's like keeping a duel going after both sides have agreed to stop, just because the town clock hasn't struck noon yet.
The pressure on those frontline officers must have been unbelievable. They knew the war was over. They could probably see Germans slowing down, maybe even waving white flags or just cautiously pulling back.
But their orders were clear. Keep fighting.
Keep attacking. Keep firing artillery. Right up until 10:59 and 59 seconds. Risking their men's lives for absolutely zero strategic gain. Just following orders for this political show of force.
In this situation, it perfectly sets the stage for Gunther, doesn't it? Command has basically ordered the killing to continue no matter how illogical, right up to the last tick.
Exactly. The war's final moments were, by design, potentially lethal. And Gunther was already actively seeking out lethality.
So let's jump right to it. It's 10:58 a.m., 2 minutes left. Gunther's platoon, Sergeant Powell leading them, they're pinned down by that German machine gun near Chaumont.
And the whole atmosphere is just surreal. The fog is thick. Fighting had been heavy earlier, but now in these last minutes, this weird, eerie quiet seems to have settled over the battlefield.
Both sides just waiting.
Yeah, it's like this unspoken truce, held together by sheer exhaustion and the absolute certainty that it's over in moments. The American orders might say fight, but every human instinct is screaming survive.
10:59 a.m.
And the silence breaks. Not with a shell, but with one man moving. Gunther. He just stands up.
Witnesses said he looked enraged, like consumed by this one single thought. He snaps his bayonet onto his rifle, that distinctive click.
And his friend, Sergeant Powell.
Yeah.
He sees it. He knows Gunther's state of mind. He knows the time. He understands immediately what Gunther's doing.
And he yells, not just as an NCO, but as a friend, desperate. "Henry, stop. The war is over in 1 minute.
Just 1 minute.
But Gunther, he's completely locked in. He doesn't hear it, or he ignores it. Ignores the order, ignores his friend, and he starts running.
Completely alone. Straight into the mist, through the mud, directly at that machine gun nest. Accounts say he fired off a shot or two from his rifle as he ran.
Like he wanted to make sure they saw him, make sure it was seen as an attack.
It seems like it, yeah. A final, desperate signal. Look at me! This is real. But this is where the story just gets profoundly human and incredibly tragic.
Because the Germans see him coming.
They see this lone figure charging out of the fog, and they're just baffled. They've survived 4 years of this hell. They know 𝐾𝐄𝐄𝐏 is literally seconds away. They have absolutely no desire to kill this guy.
So what do?
Their reaction is just astonishing. They actually stand up, get out from behind their gun.
They stand up, exposed.
Yeah, waving their hands frantically, shouting at him, trying to warn him off. In German, in broken English, anything they can manage. Stop! Go back! War is over!
They were trying to save his life. The enemy.
The guys he was charging at were actively trying to prevent his death, begging him not to throw away the life that the ceasefire had already technically saved.
But Gunther, he was beyond reason by then.
Completely. He just kept running. Ignored the shouts, ignored the waving hands, ignored this incredible, unexpected act of mercy. He had to finish it.
And by not stopping, he forced their hand.
He left them no choice. They had to assume he was a genuine threat, despite everything. He wouldn't stop. He got close. Just a few yards away, the reports say.
And then?
Then the machine gun fired. A short burst. Very disciplined, actually. The records mention only 5 rounds were fired. Just enough.
And one found him.
One bullet hit him in the left temple. Killed him instantly. He just collapsed into the mud.
The time was 10:59 a.m.
10:59 a.m.
And then the silence fell, that awful final silence. As Gunther fell, the gunfire just stopped, and the clock struck 11.
The war was over. And Henry Gunther, the bank clerk from Baltimore, demoted and shamed, became the very last American soldier killed in the Great War.
What happened right after 11 a.m.? It's almost unbelievable.
It's incredibly poignant, yeah. Just a few minutes after the official ceasefire, those same German soldiers, the ones who had just shot him, they came out again.
But this time?
Unarmed, carrying a stretcher.
No way.
Yes. They walked across that suddenly silent no man's land. They gently picked up Gunther's body, placed him on the stretcher, and carried him back.
Back to the American line.
Right back to Sergeant Powell and the rest of Company A, who were just standing there, stunned.
What did they say?
They explained, as best they could with gestures and broken words, that they'd tried to warn him, that they felt they had to shoot in self-defense. And then, and this is just extraordinary, they shook hands.
The Germans and the Americans, minutes after killing one of them.
Shook hands.
Yeah.
Right there. A kind of instant fragile truce over Gunther's body. A moment of shared humanity, recognizing the shared tragedy, the shared exhaustion, just acknowledging the victim of circumstance they'd all just witnessed or caused.
So it comes back to that question again, the why. It clearly wasn't a mistake in the heat of battle. It wasn't really about following orders at 10:59.
No, it was exactly what you called it earlier. A conscious, tragic transaction, performed in public right at the deadline.
He saw that last minute as his absolute final chance. His life felt worthless to him because of the shame, the broken engagement, the lost reputation.
So he traded it. He traded that life for the only thing he felt he could still get back, his honor. The charge wasn't about taking out a machine gun. It was about securing a different kind of legacy.
A performance aimed at his officers, at Powell, but mostly maybe at the official record, the history that would follow him home to Baltimore.
He couldn't face going back labeled a coward or, worse, a sympathizer. But maybe he could ensure he died recognized as a hero. His great niece later confirmed that, reflecting on the family's understanding. She said simply, he was trying to redeem himself.
And the terrible, bitter irony is...
It worked. His desperate, fatal gamble paid off. Well, General Pershing himself, the top commander, was apparently so struck by the story, the timing, the tragedy, that he specifically mentioned Henry Gunther by name in his official order of the day as the last American killed in the war.
That mention alone guarantees his place in history, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And the Army. Maybe feeling some responsibility for that lethal 6-hour window, maybe just recognizing the sacrifice. They gave him back everything in debt that he'd lost.
They restored his rank.
Posthumously restored his rank to sergeant. And crucially, they awarded him the Divisional Citation for Gallantry and the Distinguished Service Cross.
Which is huge. Second highest award for valor the nation gives.
Exactly. He traded his life, and he got his name back. The stigma was gone. If you visit his grave today in the Most Holy Redeemer Cemetery back in Baltimore, the tombstone reflects that. It notes he was highly decorated for exceptional bravery and heroic action.
So in the end, he returned home, not as the shamed Private Gunther, but as Sergeant Gunther, decorated hero.
The redemption was complete, but the cost was absolute. #𝐃𝐄𝐄𝐏.
What a story. It's just this complete devastating arc, isn't it? From the quiet life in Baltimore, the bank clerk,
To the disgraced private, consumed by shame.
and then finally this fatal grab for glory in the very last seconds of the biggest war the world had ever seen.
His body was brought back home in 1923. There are memorials, a VFW post named after him, a small marker over there in France where he actually fell. He's remembered.
But he remains this incredibly potent symbol, doesn't he? Not just of the random cruelty of war ending, but of the immense psychological pressure, the way identity, honor, heritage could be weaponized, and the terrible lengths someone might go to reclaim them.
Especially when you consider he had that chance to leave. The wound gave him an honorable out, and he refused it. He consciously chose that final minute as his only path back.
Which really leads us to the final thought we want to leave you with. Henry Gunther got what he wanted. He redeemed his name, proved his courage, erased the stain. But he paid with his life 1 minute before peace. So it makes you think, doesn't it? What is a reputation truly worth? And push to the absolute limit. In that final defining moment, what a transaction would you be willing to make to change how the world remembers you?